You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm Weston Williams, joined this week by Oliver Camacho and Ashley Hardgrave. All right, this week we go inside the huddle with conductor Gil Rose, founder of Odyssey Opera and the Boston Modern Orchestra Project. The company's just completed the second run of Corleone's Lord of Cries and are preparing to give the East Coast premiere of the Oliver Sacks opera, Awakenings. And then, in the listener mailbag, a field report on the American Opera Initiative. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, who blinked in the game of Opera Chicken between ENO and Arts Council England? Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Stitcher and Spotify. Click follow. On Apple Podcasts, you can hit that plus sign. Send us a voice memo or email us your hot takes at operaboxscore@gmail.com. You'll get an OBS beer coaster and an OBS lapel pin just for sharing your own hot take. And I've got a hot take right now, and it's that I'm glad to see Oliver Camacho back from France.
Welcome
Oliver, how's it going?
home.
Well, Paris is a little leitmotif in the first section of this show, I believe. But before we talk about my trip to France, we don't have to talk about my trip to France. Opera.
He's going to bring out the slideshow, give us
the game of Opera Chicken. I feel like it's more of a game of like Money Chicken or a game of like Budget Chicken than Opera Chicken.
I don't know. I feel like you could get a really solid, like, Queen of the Night style aria out of a chicken clucking. I think it'd be pretty good. That's just my artistic take on it. Ashley Hardgrave, how's it going?
It's going okay on a lot of levels. My cell phone's going off, and it is a number I don't recognize, so I'm going to ignore it. So I'm doing great. I will tell you, George brought something to my attention. There was a little article on yourbasin.com that talked about the Detroit Pistons and the Chicago Bulls traveled overseas to play a game in Paris. And while they were there, they did a lot of sightseeing, and apparently both of the teams went to do a private tour and a concert at the Paris Opera. And this whole article is about how they were wowed, and there was this really warm and fuzzy feel-good part where one of the coach's wives was supposed to go 25 years ago when she was in college, and her ticket got canceled, so this was so much better. And they kept talking about how the players were just so enamored with the opera houses and with the operas themselves. And I just want to gently remind both the Detroit Pistons and the Chicago Bulls, if you like that, boy, are you going to like what's in your backyard, because there's a whole opera house and company, both fabulous, in your literal backyards. So I just want to recommend that to our folks when they get back home.
And if you're looking for any podcasts while you're at it, there might be one we could suggest. Maybe I've got a couple ideas.
Sports and opera. That's weird. Who would do that? They're not run the same at all.
I just want to offer a do you call it a retraction or like a correction from last week? When George was reading this story about the Isabel Leonard starring in a movie, I thought he said Jennifer Coolidge, and I thought he like mispronounced Jennifer Coolidge's name as Jennifer Coolidge.
No, totally different person.
Yeah, totally different person. Joanna Coolidge, but he did say Anna Hathaway, and I was shocked that nobody corrected him. Maybe just you feel that he's too powerful. He's like the patriarch of the show, and you cannot.
We live in fear. We live in fear.
We can't correct Opera Daddy. Let's talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
Gil Rose is founder and conductor of the Boston Modern Opera Project, and also the founder and general artistic director of Odyssey Opera. He has many other credits to his name, but now he can add, finally, the credit of Inside the Huddle guest on Opera Box Score. Before we talk to Gil, here's a little bit of music from his Grammy-winning recording of Tobias Picker's fantastic Mr. Fox.
What has become of me? What am I now? My beautiful tail so bushy and tall, the pride of my family, the envy of all, the finest tail for miles around, lies lifeless, lonely on the ground, a ridiculous brush, and I, a shadow of form, a ghost no more, of the fabulous fox that I was before. longer to leave my deep warm home, no longer the forest paths to roam, the object alone of derision and mirth. Condemned evermore to hide in the earth, the shadow of form, a ghost no more of the fox that I was before. What has become of me? What am I now?
From the Odyssey Opera Grammy-winning recording of Tobias Picker's fantastic Mr. Fox, we heard a little bit of John Brancy in that show, conducted by Odyssey Opera's founder and artistic director, Gil Rose, who is our guest today on Opera Box Score. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
We're so excited to talk to you, and people can go to the odysseyopera.org website to learn more about the company and to see its history, beginning in 2013 with a bizarro season of Rienzi, Un Giorno di Regno, everybody's favorite first operas.
Well, I mean, I was actually there accidentally. I very briefly lived in Boston, and I was literally out walking and saw the double bill, the Verdi, the first Verdi comedy. I'm blanking on the name right now.
Un Giorno di Regno.
Yeah, Un Giorno di Regno, and the Wolf Ferrari, which was not what I was expecting when I was just walking through the Back Bay of Boston one evening and just hopped in there. And I was so blown away when I looked at the program and found out that was the first season of a new opera company in Boston. And I remember thinking, how did you get to this point, this level of quality so quickly? Because I've seen many opera companies in their first, couple of seasons. And believe me, they're not all hitting with such a bold season that's so well done and well put together and well thought out.
Well, we'll rehash some of these seasons, but yeah, Gil, why don't you tell us about just daring to start with this type of repertoire?
Yeah, well, oh my gosh. Well, I had run a company here in Boston called Opera Boston for 10 to 12 years, and then it met the fate of a lot of opera companies and folded, and then we sort of lay dormant for a while. But then, as the Blues Brothers say, we're going to get the band back together, and we got all the people involved kind of up and running again, and we decided to do something, newsworthy, as it were, and the idea of doing a complete performance of Rienzi, which I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it possibly may have been, it was a concert performance, but it possibly may have been the most complete performance of the opera since its premiere.
Mm.
But there's a lot of, it could be, I could be wrong about that, but to our best knowledge,
let's just George Santos the thing and say it was. So
yeah, exactly. But we did it in two performances. We did Acts 1 and 2, and then took a dinner break and did Acts 3, 4, and 5. It was a whole day event, and it was a kind of a gauntlet we threw down a little bit. Like we're going to do things that nobody did, and devil may care. We'll see what happens and come what may. And then we did a little stage season with Verdi's only other comedy other than Falstaff, his second opera, Giorno di Regno, and then a double bill of Mascagni's Zenetto, and paired with Wolf Ferrari's this Secret of Susanna, Il Segreto di Susanna. And then we were off, that was it. We were just going to do the things that nobody else did, but deserved to be done. The premise was not just that they weren't done, but why weren't they done? We would do things that should be done, but we'd somehow gotten out of the pattern of doing them in our opera and concert life. So that's where we've been ever since.
So listeners can go to odysseyopera.org and look at the past performances tab, but can you just sort of give us a shorthand of some of these seasons and some of the themes that you built seasons around?
Well, we got into this idea of themes, which has sort of been a double-edged sword because it gives us a lot of something to focus on. And at the same time, it, hamstrings us greatly. There have been seasons based on little mini half. We have these half seasons, like we did something called Wilde Opera Nights, which were all operas based on writings of Oscar Wilde. And that included, I'm try to remember exactly, but it wasn't Salome. It was
everything but Salome. You could have called
everything but Salome. It was Zemlinsky's Der Zwerg, the dwarf, and
great opera.
An amazing opera, actually, really amazing opera.
The importance of being earnest.
The importance of being earnest, which was a discovery of Castelnuovo Tedesco and Lowell Lieberman's The Portrait of Dorian Gray, and then we did Gilbert Sullivan's Patience, which is sort of not Oscar Wilde, but the main character is based on Oscar Wilde. And then we did a Joan of Arc season, which was all operas based on Joan of Arc, including Tchaikovsky and Norma del Gioio and Donizetti. So there's sort of this themology. Themology, is that a word?
Yeah, sure.
It is now.
Driving us to look at, giving us a vehicle for exploring operas. I mean, I have a running list on my laptop of like themes that just come to me about, Herman Melville at the opera. And, I have one called The Devil Made Me Do It, which is, operas that feature Mephistopheles as the main character. And just the idea of trying to connect people to opera through a larger idea, which is interrelational.
So these operas are obviously rarely, if ever, performed, especially in the U.S.
Well, rarely or have ever performed now. Some of them are very famous operas in their time.
So how do you get your artists on board, and how do you get the audience on board also?
Yeah, well, artists are that's tricky because, like when we did Tchaikovsky's opera, The Maid of Orleans, which was Tchaikovsky's attempt at a French grand opera, with the Joan of Arc story. Nobody had ever sang those parts before, or hardly ever anybody had sang those parts before. And they didn't have a lot of chances to sing it again afterwards. So they had to be motivated for basically a one-off. They had to learn the parts, perform them, and they weren't going to go to another performance 6 months later. So unlike the daily fare of regional and extra regional size opera companies, they're not going to get to perform the same things over again. So you have to really find the adventurous spirits, in the performers. And audience is not so much a problem, actually, because we've got a kind of loyal audience that is really ready to see what we serve up.
That's always the thing that struck me when I was living in Boston for that very brief period of time. The classical music season, sort of environment there is so unusual and diverse compared to cities of similar size, almost to the point where it's kind of a disadvantage if you're trying to be conventional, But I think one of the cool things that you do outside of Odyssey Opera, you're also the founder of the Boston Modern Orchestra Project as well. And one of the cool things that I really like about BMOP is the fact that it is associated with a recording label, the BMOP Sound, which is great because I am very much the kind of person who gets a little frustrated sometimes with even opera companies, orchestras that are doing this really adventurous stuff, but it goes out there live and is then never heard again. Right. But you have this whole label that I believe you're the executive producer of, correct me if I'm wrong there, of BMOP Sound. What is that like? What is that like?
Well, it's exactly, you actually put your finger right on it, which is why resurrect, for example, why resurrect Irving Fine's orchestral music if you're just going to play it for an audience of 600 people and never again? Why not record it and play it to an audience, which is the world, and also not just the world at this moment, but to document and preserve these things so that those things are there for future generations. That's been really a guiding principle for BMOP with its own label, but also for Odyssey too. I mean, if opera wasn't so damn expensive, we would probably be doing, and we plan to do as much recording as we can, because I think that one of the things we've learned a little bit that's been brought home by the pandemic, and people, how their habits of consuming music have changed.
Right.
But if you're going to put the real money in to invest in these resurrections of these ideas and these projects, best to preserve them as well you can, because those opportunities may not come again. And if they're going to have another chance in concert life or operatic life, they're going to need a reference, a recording for people to bounce off of, to initiate and motivate future performances. So yeah, it's God's work, as they say.
I just want to, we're going to pivot to your current season, but I want to give you props on the 2018-19 season. There was two themes that year. There was operas by Gounod, which
Gounod,
the Gounod. But the theme that I'm so crazy about is the three operas about Helen of Troy.
Right.
Vocally could not be more different. You have pseudo Baroque Gluck opera. You have a operetta, basically an operetta, an Offenbach, and then
Strauss.
Richard Strauss's Egyptian Helena. You could not have a more disparate, range of voice types. And I'm proud to say that many of your principals have been guests on Opera Box Score. We've had Mireille Asselin, we've had Clay Hilly on, we've had Erica Schuller.
Oh, wow, Clay! Wow, you got Clay before he got to be a big star.
Yeah, we did. So who does the casting? Because is it you that really knows these voices? For these three
it's a team. It's a team. My artistic administrator, Linda Osborne, fields ideas. I usually put out the thing is, like, for example, with the Egyptian Helene, nobody sang it because I don't know the last time it was performed in North America. So there weren't a lot of people banging around.
Sure, like Deborah Voigt.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And Ben Hapner
sang it, but even some time ago. So we put the idea out, and my team fields ideas and singers, and we. Sort of a little bit of a dance that goes on from there. And we find people who are also, right for the roles, but then also are interested in giving themselves over to something they may never sing again.
Yeah. Megan Lindsay as Padre, chef's kiss casting.
Yeah,
chef's kiss. She's so incredible. And what a beautiful actress.
Yeah, I agree. No, Megan's great.
So we're going to talk now about, you just, recorded Lord of Cries, which Lord of Cries now it has a forever tie to Opera Box Score, because it was the first time that Santa Fe Opera invited us to be over there. And so we had a first look at Lord of Cries, and now it's going on recording, and that is such a storied piece now, especially with Catherine Henry, this young artist.
That's a story.
Yeah, who's going to be a star because of her ability to sing this crazy, this crazy music.
Right. So. Right. Yeah, and she jumped in with great panache. I saw the production in Santa Fe, and she was a dream to work with here. She just showed up, low fuss, low muss. She just came and did her thing and knocked everybody out the whole time.
Yeah.
She's going to be a star.
So that's recording that's coming out soon, and
summer. Yeah, if I keep on schedule.
And now you're in the middle of preparing the Oliver Sacks opera.
Yeah, right.
Awakenings. Can you tell us about that?
We started rehearsal tonight with the chorus. I wasn't there, but the chorus master started rehearsal tonight. It's typical Odyssey thing, an opera that needed a second. We're very good at seconds,
Right.
We we have we're working. We have our first commission going actually now, so that'll be our first.
Really?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I guess it's.
Whatever you want to tell us about a commission. I'm always about the new works.
But as far as the seconds go, I mean, it happens a lot, both in the opera and the concert world. Pieces get some energy, somebody commissions them, there's a big effort, and there's a whole lot of energy put forward, and the thing happens, and that's it. I mean, the ground is littered with major pieces. I just had some email with a publisher not an hour ago or an hour and a half ago about a piece that had been done at Santa Fe, I don't know, 35 years, 40 years ago. I don't know how many years ago, that, had its moment. It was a big deal at the time. And then it literally died.
Yeah.
Nothing gets a second production these days. So.
Yeah, right. So we've tried to fill in that role in a lot of ways. And Lord of Cries was sort of that way. It was a chance to do it, make a recording, which will hopefully be the impetus for more productions down the line. And
even though it's impossible to sing.
Impossible to sing, not so impossible to play, possible to stage. But that doesn't mean it. It's funny about Lord of Cries. I mean, having gone through the experience, it really does work well as a concert. In some ways, maybe a little bit better than as a production. I guess I should be careful what I say. Well, because in the music, the narrative is really evident. And I think unless the production is really keyed in on the musical temporal narrative that's very clear to see in the scoring, that can get lost. And in a concert production, you just have the music, so you follow the narrative through your ears as opposed to your eyes, which can deceive you.
And even better for recording, so that these singers can take a break between.
No, it's not. It doesn't happen in nature really logically, and you can time it out in recording in a way that's not possible in reality. But Awakenings is sort of similar to that. I mean, it had its premiere last June, and Tobias is an old friend of mine, and we just had a chance to remount it a month from now. A month from now. A month from now, and we'll do it, and then we'll record it. Same kind of recipe in a way. So ultimately, we'll see if it gets some traction in the future. I think after, like many of these productions, after the first outing, there's a lot of buzz, and the New York Times does a review and whatever, and then companies get very involved in their own agendas, and they don't pick. Though they might be interested, they don't jump in, because the incentives are for the premiere, not for the subsequent performances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always think that going forward with premieres, these companies need to be mindful of where these things will actually live. And I think The Hours is going to be a hit, because
but it's got to go somewhere, though.
The conservatories, because of all the women roles, that's what we need. We need operas that have a lot of women in them. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's actually a really good point, actually.
But anyway, another chef's kiss casting for Odyssey Opera. You have Joyce L. Corey.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Who is such a thrilling performer. And Alex Morstein, who I thought was living in like Berlin or Vienna or somewhere in, German-speaking world. He's actually local. He went to Northwestern. We're recording here in Chicago. So we know his voice very well, where it's great to see him getting work, and that guy can sing high.
Well, good. That's good, because he's got some high things to sing. So, how convenient. Yeah, no, I think it's a nice cast, and it'll record well too. So yeah, we're right in the throes of it.
Well, Gil Rose, we're thrilled to have had a chance to meet you and to let our audiences know about what's happening. Very exciting in Boston. which we always think of as an oratorio town.
Oh my God! Oh my God! So I get to tell you about our commission, because it has to do with that comment about. I often say, I'm often asked way too many times, why isn't Boston an opera town? And that's a complicated issue and a complicated story involving big characters and big movements, and Peter Sellers and others, and the Baroque movement, the early stages of the Baroque revival, and Emmanuel music, and it also involves a character named Sarah Caldwell, who was really a woman 40 years, 50 years ahead of her time, who ran the Opera Company of Boston. And Sarah was only, I don't know if this is the right expression, but only Mark Twain could have invented Sarah Caldwell. She was an American personality of like epic proportions. She was the first woman to conduct the New York Philharmonic, or the second woman to conduct the New York Philharmonic, the first woman to conduct the Metropolitan Opera. And she was on the cover of Time magazine. And she was this larger than life opera impresario who discovered Shirley Verrett and John Vickers and Domingo and all these other characters. And she was also one of the most paradoxical characters in producing opera. She was a total charlatan, one step ahead of the IRS, and a colleague of Imelda Marcos, and was burned in effigy on the Boston Common, and was also 400 pounds in weight and a narcoleptic, and one of these amazing characters and we've commissioned an opera about her time from the mid-50s to the early 80s, where she ran the Opera Company of Boston, which was
that's going to be great.
Major opera destination. And Jamie Barton will be in the opera as Sarah Caldwell.
Oh wow. That's going to be amazing.
It's a big story.
You heard it here. Is it okay if we put this on our podcast? Okay, great. Yay, we finally have a scoop.
It's a scoop. But Sarah was this amazing person who rose from with their incredible gifts, and their tragic flaws brought them deep down to a very bad end. It's a sublime to the ridiculous kind of story, and it's an opera story. It's about producing opera and the will to produce opera against all odds. And so we're pretty excited. And Mark Adamo is the composer and librettist.
Oh, that's going to be
nice. Good. Nice. Friend of the show. Well, when they make an opera about opera box score, I will accept. I will accept Javier Camarena.
Yeah, right. You have to do your casting. Who's going to play you, right? That's not bad. That's a good choice.
Yeah. We always like to, try to tie in, sports with opera. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say about Boston sports, or
wow, that's a setup. Yeah, that's an amazing setup. Thank you. Yeah, I wouldn't watch a Patriots game if it was happening across the street from my house. I always say, as a Steelers fan, when I meet Patriots fan, I always say, what our mottos is: 6 rings, no cheating.
We should have had Matt on this show.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll make sense to somebody.
Matt who?
No, we have a Pittsburgh native who's our co-host, but he's not feeling well today.
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, if you're not a Steelers fan, where I was raised, you get sent out and you have to be raised by wolves.
I get the same thing. I'm from Alabama originally, so if it isn't Tide football, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. I remember as a kid, a program, and I must have been a teenager or something, going to the Pittsburgh Symphony, and the sports fan, the rabid sports fans were such a big thing that in the symphony program there was I don't know if it was an ad or what it was, but the title of it was "What's the Score?" And it would be like an excerpt from an orchestra score, and then that was question 1, and then question 2 was 27-19. Oh, well, that was the first time the Steelers beat the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. And then the third thing was another orchestra score excerpt. And then the other one was, a famous, when Mazeroski hit the home run in 1960. Or there was a series of sports scores and orchestral scores, and you had to be able to answer both. So that's what I thought I was getting into tonight.
Yeah, that could be a fun game for a future episode.
Yeah, you should do it. What's the score?
We'll get you back on to host that segment.
I'd love to. That'd be a lot of fun. Thanks for
Because you're not
hosting
busy
me.
at all. Tobias Picker's Awakenings is a one-night-only performance, February 25th at the Huntington Avenue Theater in Boston.
So when George is away and I'm in charge, I have to consult my notes here. So let me just do a little. Okay, does anyone know anything about sports for this week?
Well, the first Grand Slam of the year has begun in Australia, the Australian Open in Melbourne, and the women's tournament is already upended because the number 1 seed Iga Swiatek was eliminated, and and we're keeping our fingers crossed that Jessica Pegula, the number 3 seed, who actually I think her father might be an owner of the team that Damar Hamlin belongs to.
Oh, the Bills.
Yeah. So there's some tie to other sports, but I'm obviously interested in the men's draw. And Nadal is out. Casper Ruud is out. Holger Rune is out. It looks like Djokovic is going to take this one. And remember that last year he was disqualified because he's not COVID vaccinated. He is playing like a beast. He looks so hungry and angry. And I know that he's going to win this thing and then pee in the trophy or something like that. He's so angry about this whole thing.
Gross.
So. Yeah. That's my prediction. That Djokovic will win in the end, and who knows what's going to happen on the women's side.
All we know is that someone's going to pee in the trophy.
That's true. And whoever is associated with the Buffalo Bills, they have lots of extra time because the Bills got knocked out of playoff contention yesterday. We are down to 4 teams left in the NFL playoffs until the Super Bowl. So we're going to have the Bengals, the Chiefs. The Bengals play the Chiefs, and then the 49ers will play the Eagles. The Cincinnati Bengals, for the record, this is the first time they have gone to the AFC Championship playoff 2 years in a row for the first time in franchise history. And that is all because of America's heartthrob, my boyfriend, the love of my life, Joe Burrow. Have we talked about how hot Joe Burrow is? Have you seen... Oliver, focus. Have you seen a photo of Joe Burrow? Do you know how hot this man is?
I'm going to look it up right now. Let me see.
Here we go. We're going to get our live reaction right now. Oliver is Googling. He is opening the window.
Oh.
He said, "Oh," in a very suggestive way.
Do you see? Have you seen the light? Have you seen what our Lord and Savior has blessed us with?
So
Thank
everything
you,
is so
Father God.
square. There's so much jaw and chin. And
His jaw could cut glass and my face as much as he wants. But don't worry, friends. Even though National Football League is about to be over, fear not. The USFL, the other football league, is going to start up in April. There is no Chicago franchise. The closest thing to us is going to be the Michigan Panthers that play out of Detroit. So if anybody's up for a road trip for some spring football, we can do that.
That sounds like a plan to me. I'll leave you two and your collective husband to it. Let's take a look in this bag here. Oh, what's this? A letter from a listener. It's listener mailbag.
Yeah, you got something to say? Then yeah, all right, you can say something. This is listener mailbag.
it's so great that our audience is engaged with us and it gives us content.
It really is about mooching off of you guys. We really do appreciate it, which is why we send you payment in form of beer coasters and lapel pins.
Yes.
You know, so make sure you let us know. operaboxscore@gmail.com is where you want to send all your content that we can shamelessly reuse.
So we're getting a field report on the Kennedy Center / I want to say Washington National Opera's American Opera Initiative. The mentors this season are librettist Kelly Rourke, filmmaker Kimberly Reed, composer Carlos Simon, and Washington National Opera principal conductor Evan Rochester. And I imagine that Francesca Zambello has also something to do with all of this. The three shows that were on offer were Oshun, music by B.E. Boykin with libretto by Jared Lee, a work called Bubby and the Demon with music by Jens Ibsen and libretto by Cecilia Raker. And What the Spirits Show, music by Cylon Wellington and libretto by Walken Schweigert. And I imagine that this also involved the Cafritz, no longer Cafritz Domingo, young artists and all of this. So that is the festival initiative that we are going to hear about from
our friend Woody in the District of Columbia, and he writes to us, "Hi, OBS. Here's an update from DC. WNO this weekend held their Events for American Opera Initiative, AOI, which included 3 20-minute operas this year. Francesca Zambello and WNO continue supporting new work. They match composer librettist teams with mentor composers and mentor librettists, and talk about diverse voices. All 6 composers and librettists of the 3 shows this year are Black or LGBTQ+.
Oh, we love to hear it. Woody saw Bubby and the Demon by composer Jens Ibsen and the libretto by Cecilia Raker. Ibsen described the music as being influenced by Mahler and heavy metal, which sounds like something I would listen to. Here's how the program described it. Bubby has filled the void of COVID isolation by solving as many word searches as possible until her latest puzzle turns out to be a cursed summoning incantation that conjures a demon from the netherworld. And Woody says, question, can opera be fun, but can it be a little zany? Answer, I'm glad to say yes. My high schooler and I left the theater smiling. That sounds absolutely delightful. I love that kind of stuff. Woody also went to the musical play Passion of Mary Cardwell Dawson with the great Denise Graves in the title role.
Which is not the AOI festival or initiative.
Right,
it's separate, so yeah.
Separate. But he said he had a great weekend in D.C., and thank you so much, Woody, for writing in. We love getting in these kind of field reports, hearing what you guys are listening to, what your reactions are, and your opinions on any range of topics. Once again, our email is operaboxscore@gmail.com. Thank you so much to Woody for sending in your work.
Don't be shy. We know that PJ has very high production value on his voice memos, but you could send us a regular old voice memo with, your whatever cell phone you have. We might be able to air that too. So we'd love to hear your voices. I'll work my magic
to make it sound really nice. I'll boost the bass way up, make it boom through the audience. It'll be great.
This just in, the 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
English National Opera has been given a 1-year reprieve by the Arts Council England to the tune of £11.5 million. The reinstated funding would allow E&O to keep staging shows at the Coliseum as they plan for a new base outside London by 2026. E&O, nevertheless, is postponing a number of new productions, including the co-production of Wagner's Ring Cycle with the Met.
Coming this March, it's Blanchella. Lincoln Center will create a festival dedicated to the works of Terence Blanchard entitled See Me As I Am, featuring presentations by all of the arts campus's organizations, except for the ballet for some reason. Said Blanchard, I'm overjoyed at the idea of bringing all my musical experiences together to make one statement about the importance of human connection.
We almost went with Blanchapalooza, but we ended up with Blanchella. No Blanchard by Blanche West or anything like that. So. The Paris Opera has organized a fundraiser to balance the budget for the first time in its history. Friends of the Paris Opera has partnered with Sotheby's to sell 75 lots, including a couture experience from Chanel, a Rolex with an estimated value of $16,000 to $32,000, and a silver tiara linked to Queen Victoria. Nota bene, I don't think Sotheby's takes Venmo.
In an article in the Irish Times, soprano Danielle Denise comments, there's no reason why cliché should follow opera. The fat lady sings, the Viking helmet, the cartoon impressions about it. Nobody in the world of opera is perpetuating any of them anymore, so why are they still lurking in the background? Opera is so much more dynamic than that. Every single one of us who gets out in front of the public and promotes it does their bit to blast those clichés to smithereens. Yum, smithereens.
I love smithereens.
Delicious. Teatro alla Scala is the latest company to build a streaming platform. LaScala.tv will launch on February 14th with the performance of I Vespri Siciliani, conducted by Fabio Luisi. The perfect way to celebrate Valentine's Day with your Verdi completist lover.
Crunching the numbers, data released from the Met shows that the audiences are getting younger, with the average age of a Met Opera attendee now being 52, down from an average age of... Hey, that's not funny. Down from an average age... That's young. Down from an average age of 57 just 2 years ago. Younger attendees, however, are buying fewer season tickets and are less interested in standard repertoire, preferring works by living composers over the classics.
In trade news, Opera Omaha has announced its new general director, the 19th in the company's history. Allison Swenson will take over for Roger Weitz. Swenson previously served as the director of development at the Santa Fe Opera.
San Diego Opera has announced the appointment of Melody Moore as its artistic administrator. The soprano will serve as an advisor to General Director David Bennett in casting decisions.
On the disabled list, Lisa Lindstrom has canceled her participation in Dresden's Ring Cycle. To my dear fans, friends, and family, I am disappointed to not be bringing my Brunhilde to you, said Lindstrom on Instagram. German soprano Ricarda Merbet will assume the role.
The Met has announced a cast change for its upcoming revival of Bohème. Sopranos Sylvia Duramo and Leah Hawkins will sing Musetta, replacing Christina Mkhitaryan.
And on this day, January 23rd, in 1639, Francesco Cavalli joined St. Mark's in Venice as organist. In 1789, it was the birth of tenor and pedagogue Giulio Marco Bordogni. Some of you might have his book of vocalises. In 1841, American contralto Antoinette Sterling was born. She studied with Pauline Viardot and Manuel Garcia, and Arthur Sullivan wrote The Lost Chord for her. In 1930, it was the birth of Wagnerian bass Manfred Schenk. Happy birthday to John Luther Adams, the environmentalist composer, not to be confused with John Adams, whom we assume doesn't sort his recyclables. John Luther Adams hasn't really written any operas except for ILIMAQ, a drum kit opera performed by Glenn Kotchke. By the way, John Luther Adams was born this day in 1953. Happy birthday to a real American opera composer, Mason Bates, born this day in 1977. And on January 23rd, 1999, Three Women, based on excerpts from 3 historical operas by Thea Musgrave, had its premiere in San Francisco.
And that is your 2-minute drill.
Just a little bit of Sie hat mich nie geliebt, or Ella Jamai Mamo from Don Carlos. That was bass, what's his name? Manfred Schenk, with the Gelsenkirchen State Orchestra led by Lubomir Romanski.
You getting it?
Yes.
Yeah, you got it. First try.
I
no
haven't
retakes.
eaten yet. I'm a pro, people. I'm a pro.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of things, I just want to recommend that everybody go look up this Irish Times article from Danielle Denise, or about Danielle Denise, not because of anything that she says, which is all just fine, because she's Danny Denise, whatever. She rules that repertoire. It's because of the videos that are embedded in the article. So she was a child star. I don't know if you guys know this. So she was on an Australian television show called Young Talent Time, and they have a video of her singing Tomorrow, the theme song from Annie, in 1988. So back when she was like using her chest voice. And then what that does is it takes you on a YouTube rabbit hole, and it gets you to an amazing Christian television ad from Australia where she's singing about having pockets, and then they cut to the pockets, and the pockets have embroidery, and it's about Jesus. There's a mouse at the end of the commercial. Nobody knows what's going on. The point is, those are the reasons that you go and look at that article, not for anything else. Now let's talk about E&O and the Met and what this means for like the greater opera canon of the world.
Well, I think that this is obviously, Arts Council England is backing down a little bit. They're saying, we're not going to chop your head off today, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. because this is obviously an interesting development. I will say, I want to point this out here. When we were talking about the sort of the ring cycle postponement at the Met because of the E&O funding cut, that story broke right before the this 11.5 million pound cash infusion that E&O is apparently going to get. So who knows if that will turn it around. However, I do think that it's an interesting opportunity to sort of think about how interconnected a lot of these bigger companies, all these national companies around the world are, because you really see very clearly how national politics can really disrupt the overall international ecosystem. This is something we were talking about with Brexit, especially now that it's more difficult to get international singers in and out of England. And now possibly the ring cycle is going to be on the chopping block as well. I think that there's a lot to be said about the consequences of this, not just for England, but for places outside of England as well.
So the Met is losing their ring in 2025, which was supposed to be a collab, or 2026, 27. I think it's
2026.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the articles had something weird where they were going to do like part of it in 25 and then they were going to go into the full cycle with E&O in 26.
So I don't know if that means that they're going to use the old production, the machine, but we know that we thought that that was going to be recycled. That thing. Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
I think that it's a large amount of money that they are now going to get, but I don't know if it's going to, because the Met had to reinforce the whole stage for the machine.
Honestly,
so
I don't think anybody would be mad if the Autoshank production came out for a ring cycle at this point. It's like let's just have the damn thing, for God's sake.
Well, it's just this reminder of like, when you plan a vacation with your friends. Everybody's supposed to go to Bora Bora. Everybody's put in the cash. You've set the times. Everybody's supposed to go. And everybody's participation is contingent on everybody else's participation. And then all of a sudden, one of your friends, like, can't go because you broke up with her boyfriend and she's sad or whatever. Like, her daddy's not paying her credit card anymore. And then all of a sudden, nobody can go to Bora Bora anymore. That's how this feels.
Yeah.
I've never been to Bora Bora, and I also don't know if I know anyone that can afford to go. But the point is, that's my analogy.
I like how the E&O was both the dad's credit card and the bad boyfriend in that metaphor. Maybe
I think the point is just get older and have more money when you want to go on vacation, and don't rely on your friends to do things anymore. That's how I feel. I mean, like, I just came back from a vacation, and my dear friend wanted me to sleep in his apartment. That's what his way of like treating me. It's like when I saw the apartment, it's like, okay, I'm too old for this shit. I'm gonna get my own hotel. I'm getting hotel room.
I'm gonna stage the ring myself. Thanks. Yeah. I'm gonna go do it over here.
Well, maybe they should consider doing what Paris Opera's doing and organize a fundraiser.
No, I have a better seg.
Okay. Hit me.
Speaking of being too old, 52 is not old. And,
you're right. It's not.
We'd be so happy at my other job if our average age listener was 52. Right now we're like, ooh, 67. Yes. Yeah. That's
we've made it.
Young kids. Yeah. So, I think you guys talked about this to a certain extent last week, but the desire for new works, living composers, new stories does come from the average age being not 80 years old, and so that's progress.
Yeah, it's been something, my entire life, it's been, a discussion about how to get these audience ages younger. And, I think that's how to do it. We talked about it extensively, I think, with the Met. I am honestly, like, I did snort a little bit at the 52, but 52, you're right, is not old. Like, that is by any definition, that is still not as young as me, spry and youthful as I am, but
our
it
spring
is
chicken over there.
But like, it's kind of nice to know that I am not solely bringing down the age average in in major opera companies just by myself anyway.
Well, and one thing to think about with this is that our ideas of what age looks like in the cultural zeitgeist are shifting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, this age is going down, but also the idea of what each of these ages mean looks very different than it did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, certainly
Absolutely.
20 years ago. So 52 now, yeah, you're right. It's not that old. Some of us that have seen people that turned 52, in our childhoods, we thought it was like this older age, but nutrition's better, healthcare's better, people are living a lot longer. So the idea of this age coming down, these people are in fact younger and in many cases healthier than their predecessors were from a couple of decades ago.
It is genuinely really exciting to see, hopeful news from the Met. And I don't want to talk about it too much because we mentioned it a lot last week, but just like the idea of having new stuff, relevant stuff with younger audiences, it's the stuff we've been screaming about since the beginning of time. Apparently, Danielle Denise has also been screaming about it, and we're
since 1988
belting about it.
We are absolutely ready for a change, and I'm glad that the most venerable of our American opera companies is finally getting on board. Let's wrap this show up.
Good call, bad call on Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call. That's how we end every show. Let's start with Ashley today. What's your call for me?
It's actually neither good nor bad. It's a sad call. We lost a musical icon in her own right, Lisa Marie Presley, who is the daughter of the literal king. And I don't know if you guys got a chance to see any of the coverage of her memorial service at Graceland, but it was really beautiful, and it was amazing to see all of these different icons of music come together to celebrate her life and her artistry and the role that she plays in modern American musical history. And for the folks that are left in that family, you just can't help but have your heart break for them. She just became a grandmother before she passed away. And of course, Priscilla is kind of the last one standing of the group. So I want to hug the whole Presley family in my heart this week.
Oliver Camacho.
Well, the first few weeks of January are always sort of like a desert for culture, but you get to the end of January, the beginning of February, and man, there is just too much to do. In Chicago alone, over the coming week, you can see Dame Jane Glover conducting Albert Herring with an incredible local cast.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Hansel and Gretel will open up by the time you hear this show. At Lyric Opera Chicago while they are getting ready to mount Will Liverman's The Factotum. And next Tuesday in Chicago, January 31st, Juan Diego Flores makes his long-awaited return to Chicago. It's been, 17 years since he's last been here. He's going to give a recital with pianist Vincenzo Scalera. And one of your favorite OBS hosts will be giving the pre-concert lecture at that recital. So check it out.
I'm so excited to see George Cedarquist up there.
talking about Handel operas, yeah. We should ask him next time we see George, can you name 4 Rossini operas? Let's see.
My good call is related to having Gil Rose on the podcast. I actually made a TikTok which has gone mega viral. Almost 200 people have seen it as of the recording of this episode. And it was actually a recording of it was actually a joke about show this piece to the person who says they only don't listen to country music and rap, and I used a clip from the original version of George Antheil's
Really funny.
the George Antheil's oh God, I'm completely blanking on the name, but all that to say, it's from a recording that Gil Rose conducted. I didn't realize it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was. That's awesome.
Boston Modern Opera Project. It's a great recording. It's got his jazz suite on the other part of that recording. Check it out. If I remember what it's called, I will edit it in here. Ballet Mécanique, or make George put it on the site. It's great. That is it for this week's edition of America's Talk radio show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Send us a voice memo or email us your hot takes at operaboxscore@gmail.com. Find links to the stuff we've talked about on our website, operaboxscore.com, and that's where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to OBS on our donate page. Your announcer is Norm Waddell. Your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho. I'm your audio editor, Weston Williams, and for our co-host Ashley Hardgrave and guest Gil Rose, I'm once again Weston Williams, asking you to continue the conversation about opera as you prepare to set sail on a Goonodyssey. We're back with an all-new show next week when we go inside the huddle with soprano Kerriann Otaño, Opera Delaware's VP of Engagement. Plus, you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more silver tiaras. Join us.